I'm going to take this, I like this, and I'm going to bring this into Photoshop and try to just fine tune it. And as again, I'm going to edit a copy, not the original, with the Lightroom adjustments because I adjusted it here. And see if I can rebalance this more and give it kind of more of a fine art feel to it. All right, so first thing I do is I'm going to look at skin tone. Looks pretty darn good, but I'm going to work on this. So how do you get a sharp line like this out? Well, I can try to blend it by taking this tone here and trying to paint on top of this line to reduce that line and make it less contrasty and kind of work that. So how would I do that? So first of all, let's duplicate this image because I don't want to work on the original. I'm going to work on a duplicate layer and then I can also blend it. Then I'm going to go ahead, take my brush. I'm going to give it left flow of 14% or so. And then I am going to select lighter color because I want to brighten it. If you want to brighten it, you select lighter. If you want to darken it, you select darker color. So I want to lighten it, but I want to match it to this tone. So I'm going to select that tone right there. And I'm trying to blend this, paint over that line to reduce that contrast there. So if I paint over, see how it's kind of reducing it? I might not be able to get it all the way, but I'm going to take out this little area here. I might have to use a real small brush to get that out. See how I kind of reduce that there like that? Now I kind of painted right over that, so I'm going to undo that last brush to get that out. Here's another trick you can do, is you can use the history brush and it takes away what you did before. So I painted over this, and so I'm going to use the history brush and say, whatever was painted over in this area before, don't do it, right? So I can use the history brush to say, I don't want any of that there. So that's a good tool to use. And see how it's kind of faded now? Look how sharp that was. Now you're kind of creating that soft light there. I could also take, let's try to take this tone here and smooth out this area here. Again, it's like Photoshop it is like painting, right? And so kind of creating that highlight in there. I feel like I messed up, so I'm going to take the history brush and paint over there. I'm going to select this tone here, and what I want to do is darken there. So I want to go to darker color, which is right up here. I'm going to select a tone near there, and I want the darker color to fill in. So I can even that out. That's not bad. Oops. It's starting to get a little bit blurry there. I'm not going to deal with it. And so here, darker color. Okay. And that's actually pretty good because if you look at it from far back, you can see that that's pretty nice transition there. It's not so sharp. And I can also fade that opacity. Right, here's how it was. You can just kind of fade it to where you need it. There. And I can actually go and take and make it a bit darker there. So I could do spot darken, take a fairly large brush, and oh, see, here's the mask. It's black. I had to make sure that it's opposite white. And so you can paint that there like that to make it look a little bit more natural. I mean, I can also, if I want to smooth the skin out here, right in there, that little bit right there. That looks pretty darn good right there. Smooth that line out a bit. That's a pretty smooth transition right in there. That looks pretty darn good right there. Kind of clean that up. Bring that down, flatten that. And I think it just looks a little bit more natural if I just darken this area a bit more. So make this brush a little bit bigger and just darken this area here so it's not as bright. Perfect. Flatten that. All right, now I want us, if you make it small, what do you see? All right, I see this here, so I'm going to try to reduce the impact of this area here by darkening it. So I have my action over here called Spot Darken, where it allows me just to go in and darken things. I need a fairly big brush. And everywhere where it's kind of super bright, I'm just going to bring it down. Okay. And then I'm just going to lighten it up right around here. Open it up. Now what I'm going to try to do is add a darker layer over the whole image, so I can darken the entire image, but then bring back the subject so there's more of a contrast and she sticks out a bit more. So I'm going to pick a dark tone right in here somewhere. I usually like to use the same tone that's kind of in the picture. So I'm going to select a tone here, and you can see it's pretty dark. That's what that tone is. I'm going to make another layer. Actually, I can hit this fill foreground highlights. It'll take the foreground layer and make it dark. It puts a mask over it and covering everything, but I want it to show all the way through. So I'm going to hit Command I, which means the inverse. So what's the opposite of black? White, right? So when you hit Command I, turns it to white. Now look how dark everything is. So I have it dark, a dark tone. And what I want to do is not have it that dark. I want to darken the background a bit. Okay. But then I want to bring back the subject. And so I'm going to paint a mask back so my subject comes a little bit brighter there. And so that way you can start to see a halo. So I'm going to just cut away that mask around her a bit so there's no halo there. Try to gradually, but again, it's like painting, you know, it's got to work at it a bit and just keep fiddling with it. And so this way you're bringing everything down so she sticks out a bit more. because she's a little bit brighter. 71% is probably too much. But even if I just took it down a little bit, 40%, it's just gonna make her come out just a bit there. Well, I can deal with that. Now, what gives it another fine art feel and less of a photo is if I use my color, kind of color toning is what I call it. It's almost like color grading, where I can pick one of these blue yellows, purple yellow, or brown yellow. In this case, the brown yellow might look pretty good because it's got some brown tones. But so let's see what that looks like. And so you can see that kind of gives it a painterly feel. You can reduce the highlights here, and you can reduce the brown shadows here. So what this is doing is putting brown in the shadows like a painting, because a painting doesn't go jet black on you, and it's kind of has a lower contrast, and this has a orange tone to it. Okay, that's okay. I want to experiment with other things to see if it might look better. I'm going to go with my standard blue yellow and see what that looks like. I use blue yellow the most, and I'm going to pull down my blue, just add a little bit of blue in there, and the yellow, again, I always like to start with 0 and then just add something right there. And now it's kind of got that more painterly feel to it because I'm reducing the dynamic range just like a painting. And I'm going to flatten that down. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit more pop into Lightroom because I like doing my global adjustments in there because it's quite easy and it has to go back into the Lightroom anyways. So I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to save it. I'm going to bring it back into Lightroom, close this out. Then it's going to make a copy and put it back right into Lightroom. And so here you can see it here. You know, we started here and now we're here, giving it more of a fine art feel. And again, when you add a highlight, when you color tone it or color grade it, you're going to lose a little bit of pop. So I've got to get that back by going back into my tone curve and just bumping up the lights a little bit. See how that gives that little pop in there? And then the darks, what do I want to do with that? Do I want to lighten it? That looks pretty cool right there. And so now I've got this nice image. At the end, I could add some clarity to it, just to add a little, see how you can add some clarity. And that also kind of can give it that fine art look a little bit. It's kind of that HDR, you have texture that can even sharpen it even more. There, sometimes you like to go in close just to see what it looks like, just in case if you blow it up, you don't want it to look too sharp sometimes. It doesn't look natural, but man, look how sharp that is. And that's a great image. Didn't take that long. You just bring it in Luminar. Add a sky real quick. You can leave it as is and just do your global adjustments in Lightroom, or you can really fine tune it, bring it into Photoshop and color grade it and mess with it. And an image like this, I kind of like to give it that fine art feel. And this is how I do it and achieve it to get that painterly like look. And it's so easy to do when you can just add a sky and pop it in. It makes a huge difference. And so you can see going from here to here is quite a huge difference, and it's easy to do when you just bring it in Luminar and quickly add a sky.